My wife disappeared without explanation after a girls' trip. Years later, she came back asking for forgiveness, but I had already moved on. Hey Reddit. My wife, Melissa, and I had been married for 7 years when everything fell apart. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it was solid, or so I thought. We had a home, a life, and our 4-year-old son, Ethan, who was the center of our world. Melissa had always been an attentive mother, and though we had our arguments like any couple, I believed we were a team. That belief shattered when she went on a week-long girls' trip and never came back. The trip started out uneventfully. Melissa left on a Sunday morning with her 2 best friends, excited for some much-needed relaxation at a beach resort. She hugged Ethan goodbye, kissed me on the cheek, and promised to call when she got there. And she did. For the first couple of days, she called and sent photos, beach sunsets, drinks by the pool, selfies with her friends. It all seemed normal. Then the calls stopped. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was busy, or her phone died. But as the hours turned into days, I grew worried. Calls went straight to voicemail. Messages remained unread. By the 4th day, I was panicked. I called the hotel, only to be told she had checked out. Her friends weren't answering my calls either. When I finally reached one of them, all she said was, Melissa needed some space, before hanging up. Melissa was gone. I filed a missing persons report, contacted her family, and even hired a private investigator. Weeks turned into months, and there was no sign of her. No credit card activity, no social media updates, nothing. The investigator suggested she might have left voluntarily, but I couldn't accept that. Why would she abandon Ethan? Why would she leave me? It didn't make sense. For a long time, I was stuck in limbo. Ethan would ask where mommy was, and I had no answer. I told him she loved him but couldn't be here right now. It broke me every time. Nights were the hardest, staring at the empty side of the bed, wondering what I'd done wrong, what I could have done differently. Therapy helped a little, but the questions never stopped haunting me. Over time, I had no choice but to move forward. Ethan needed me. I threw myself into being the best father I could be, building a stable and happy life for us. My parents and close friends became my lifeline, helping me pick up the pieces. Slowly, I stopped hoping for Melissa to come back. And then I met Emily. Emily was a teacher at Ethan's school. She was kind, patient, and compassionate. She understood the pain I carried and never pushed me to share more than I was ready to. What struck me most was how much she cared for Ethan. She treated him like her own, attending his soccer games and helping with his homework. Over time, I fell in love with her. Emily and I got married 3 years after Melissa disappeared. It wasn't an easy decision, I carried so much guilt for moving on. But Emily reminded me that I deserved happiness, that Ethan deserved a family. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. I had let go of the ghost of Melissa and started building a new life. Then, one evening, everything changed. It was a regular Tuesday. Ethan was at soccer practice, and Emily and I were sitting on the couch, deciding what to make for dinner. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I assumed it was a package. But when I opened the door, my heart stopped. Melissa was standing on the porch. She looked older, thinner, but it was her. Her eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "I'm sorry, James. Can we talk?" I couldn't speak. I just stood there, staring at the woman I had mourned, the woman who had left me and Ethan without a word. Finally, I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. I didn't want Emily to see her, not yet. Melissa began to explain. She said she had felt trapped in our marriage, in motherhood, in the expectations of being perfect. She claimed she needed to escape to find herself and had been too ashamed to come back. She told me she had traveled, lived abroad, and spent years trying to figure out who she was. She insisted she had always loved me and Ethan but hadn't known how to handle her feelings. Her words felt hollow. I told her about the sleepless nights, the endless searching, the pain she had caused not just me but Ethan too. She started crying, begging for forgiveness, asking to see Ethan. I told her she had no right. She had made her choice, and she couldn't just walk back into our lives like nothing had happened. When I went back inside, Emily was waiting. I told her everything, and she listened without judgment. She simply held my hand and told me she was there for me, whatever I decided to do. Melissa didn't give up easily. She sent letters, left voicemails, and even tried to show up at Ethan's school. I had to get a lawyer involved to establish boundaries. Legally, she had rights as his mother, but emotionally, I couldn't let her disrupt the life we had built. Ethan didn't even remember her. Emily was the only mother figure he had known. Eventually, Melissa sent one final letter. She said she understood that I had moved on and that she hoped one day I could forgive her. She wrote that she loved Ethan and wished she could be part of his life, but she didn't want to cause more pain. I never responded. Years passed, and life continued. Ethan grew into a bright, happy teenager. He called Emily mom without hesitation, and she deserved every bit of that title. She had been there for him when Melissa wasn't. Together, we built a life filled with love and laughter. Melissa became a distant memory, a chapter of my life I had closed. Some nights, I wondered if I had made the right choices, if Ethan would someday resent me for not letting Melissa back into his life. But deep down, I knew I had done what was best for him, for us. Life isn't a fairy tale. People don't just disappear and come back expecting everything to be the same. Melissa made her choice, and I made mine. I chose to move on. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace. Sometimes, walking away from the past isn't about forgetting, it's about choosing to protect the future you've worked so hard to rebuild. That's all for today's video, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for more exciting content. See you next time.